Do not find that keen at all. No. Gosh, stop it. Stop that. So, some books that could be super helpful besides ours, which you want to pre-order, uniquely us, but some books that we have used with couples or have been recommended. We came across I Hear You by Michael Sorensen. That was recommended by Barbara Grant. That's a really good book. It's a book, you said listening can be difficult. And so I Hear You is about how to listen to understand before you're listening to be understood, how to validate someone's feelings, even if you disagree with them, how to validate what someone's experience is, even if you don't think it happened that way. So that is a good book. We've done a course. Thanks for the feedback.
That's definitely a good one.
That really breaks everything down. I found that book when I was in my communication course, which is why I love it so much. There's another book. It can get a little bit in the weeds, but you mentioned something back at the beginning about internal dialogue. And so the same authors plus another author wrote a book called Difficult Conversations. And it talks about how conversations kind of go offline. It kind of walks you through two people talking and possible internal dialogue of each person and how this internal dialogue could take this person to this assumption, which could take you to the next part in the sentence. And it breaks it down. There's a couple of things in there I don't like about that book, like saying that because a woman wore a certain thing, she contributed to her own rape. I don't think that's accurate. But other than that, everything else I like in the book. They were trying to make the point that no one is innocent all the time, but everybody contributes to something. And they made two lines that just frustrate me. And because the woman wore the thing at the bar, she was 1% contributing if she got raped later. It's like, no, she did not. Other than that, that's my disclaimer of that book. Everything else just breaks down those assumptions, eternal dialogue, how things get mismatched. And that's, if you're reading it, I mean, the assumption is two neurotypical people in the book. So, wow, if that's what happens in neurotypical relationships, then how much more do we go awry?
One of the books I just finished was Talking to Strangers. That's Malcolm Gladwell.
You said you wanted to talk about that in this podcast because you said some of the points, while it's not necessarily a recommend, you thought there were some interesting points there.
There are, and I think it's probably a better read than me talking about it. But the general idea of that book is, why is it so hard to communicate? And one of the, it starts off with the examples of, you push back a handful of years and there was a lot of activity of police abuse. And that was the example that they used. Why is it that in this situation, things got out of hand so fast? What was everybody missing in the moment? And what was really interesting is, it wasn't necessarily about that moment. It was that what we didn't do was bring context into the situation. The policeman didn't bring context in, and the person in the car didn't bring the context in. So both people elevated their tension really fast, and it just goes the other side of sideways because both sides really made assumptions about what's going on. There's a lot of backstory going on into the police situation. The book opens with a specific story that happened in Texas about a lady that just moved to Texas. She had just got a job. She was going too fast in this small town. She got pulled over. It escalated. She ended up going to jail. I don't remember the exact moments, but it was like 2 or 3 days or a couple of weeks. Within a very short amount of time, she ends up committing suicide in the jail cell because of all the things that were going on. And by the time you get to the end of the book, you realize that there was a lot going on in just general policing in that point. What they were being taught, how that was going on, the culture of policing, where all of that came from. You also get to learn about her backstory and find out what was going on with her in that situation. These two situations collide, and neither person gave the other person the opportunity, the benefit of the doubt. Either one could have de-escalated at any moment, and nobody chose to do so. And a lot of times that's what happens in conversations that we're near, is one person comes home from work, the other person's been home with the kids all day or whatever was going on in the house, and neither person gives the other person room to have had a day. It was, I walked in, so you're on. And that's it. And then we wonder why it escalates so fast. So I think that book, while not doesn't have anything to do with autism in any form, just a plain old backstory of what does it really mean to communicate? Because if you can't do that with somebody, I mean, that's the extreme, right? This is somebody that
Because these are because
people
talk to
that
strangers,
they
right? Or
don't
people you
know,
don't
they don't know
know.
each other.
Right.
And by the time I got to the end of the book, a little bit of it finally said to me, well, you know what? Maybe we're strangers in our own house.
Mm-hmm.
Right? This isn't a situation of two people that have um, exchanged a lot of conversation that they've got something good to build on. This is the regular, everyday, we're strangers, borderline enemies sometimes, and that sets the conversation up because you're not going in and, well, we can't do any podcast without bringing in a wilder concept. Um, you're not coming in a situation relational, right? I mean, no part of a police interaction with you pulling over is naturally relational. But if it was, you get to that situation, you get to an outcome that, yeah, maybe you still get a ticket for driving too fast, but nobody gets shot or goes to jail. And the analogy here is you come home from work, nobody gets shot or goes to jail, but somebody might have still got a ticket. Right there, right? You see the analogy, and it's because you brought, this is where I came from. This is where that person might have come from. This is what their day, and maybe you've dropped hints during the day of, whatever. The power went out, the sink is leaking, the light bulbs are gone, whatever. Those are hints of, my day wasn't perfect. And when you walk in the door, I'm not just going to run up and give you a big fat sloppy kiss, right? There's other things going on, and you need to be prepared to work through that.
That's why in the book and in our conversations we have with couples, when we say like, what's going on, what's the biggest thing, is lack of connection and our communication. Those are the two, and they go together because miscommunication drives
Right there.
disconnection.
It's a negative flywheel.
So I think, and as we can kind of continue to kind of flesh this out a little bit, the importance of listening to learn and understand, that can be one of the things. And I think, like, if ladies, even we were talking about in a class this week, that when the neurotypical spouse is saying to the autistic spouse, this hurt me, or this happened, or when we were talking last week, and it comes back, no, I didn't. That didn't hurt you. That wouldn't hurt me. If you said that to me, you think you've never said that? We didn't talk last week. It was last month. Those things are not relational, curious,
Right.
or continuing of a conversation. That's that lawyering, wrong spotting, fact checking, instead of what is it that was hurtful, or what is it that my spouse wants me to understand right now. It's usually defensiveness. And so learning to kind of crack that code to understand each other's communication style. And it's not that, quote, the neurotypical way of speaking is right and the autistic way is wrong. This isn't a right or wrong thing, but the whole reason there is a whole field in speech, language, and pragmatics is that the neurotypical brain, which is the majority, uses language and interacts with language and communication and context in a way that the majority is using. Right. So when it's atypical, and yes, there are many strengths and wonderful things about the neurodiverse brain, but those two brains interacting, when one person is expecting how I communicate with most other people, it should happen in this way, and then you're undiagnosed and you don't know for years and decades, you've got that what you call the flywheel, the negative flywheel, that toxic cycle that's been going on a really long time. And then we kind of kid about it. This is one thing you'll continue to do for the rest of your life. You continue to get angry and exhausted about it, or be like, yep, that's Dan didn't hear me call his name, or I didn't call Dan's name. I forgot to prompt him. He was supposed to listen to me. that the plant in the room is talking. Stephanie's talking now. It's to you because we don't have any children in the home. So we continue to learn, we continue to prompt, and we continue to give the space and the grace and the, now that we're past all, well, at least what was trauma for me, um, good intention, assumption that there's probably a miscommunication.
Right.
Versus something that was said intentionally hurtful or to cause harm. And we can pivot through those places a little bit better. But it's better, but it's not perfect.
Right. No, I think if your goal is perfect, I think you're going to fail.
Right.
Right. You're after better.
Yeah. And a lot of things. So I don't know why Christian couples struggle with this so much. But I do find in my Christian couples versus non-Christian couples, when I suggest tools like Gottman or emotional healthy relationships, but not using the Christian part of that, I get more buy-in from my non-Christian clients about using scripts and using tools. And my Christian couples still think it's magically going to happen. I don't know if the Holy Spirit works that way. To suddenly correct your speech, like you're gonna have to learn new things, learn some scripts, and oh, that's wood and that's not organic.
Practice.
And so neurotypicals, I'll say this to you: if your spouse is willing and is trying to learn emotional language, trying to do communication in a different way, you're going to have to be patient, and it's going to be awkward, and it's going to take longer, and there's going to be pauses. It's not going to be organic for a bit, because you've got to give each other that space to practice and ask questions and lean in. And this is why this would maybe be better.
If you're truly strangers, you're going to have to get to know each other before anything's organic.
Well, that's what a lot of people say, right? We're living like we're roommates. So just because you've known each other for 10 or 20, 30 years, don't mean you really know each other.
Right.
So you might be starting over at what we've talked about before, level 1, level 2, level 3.
Maybe you're becoming friends first.
Yes. And that's another concept our couples get so frustrated with when we say, hey, we're not going to really talk about intimacy and sex and dating. Like, let's be friends and like to be in the same room together. Let's work on that. I don't want a friendship marriage. Okay. I don't know what to do with that, because you were probably friends before you were romantic partners. So understanding that when a coach or a therapist says to you, like, hey, we need to work on your companionship, we need to work on your friendship, that's hopefully the floor and not the ceiling. But you got to start somewhere. And if you're like wanting to jump into like deeply intimate communication, but you can't talk about phone chargers and where the milk is located without fighting, you've got a long way to go. There's not 5 steps and 3 coaching. I mean, both of us will get emails like, this is happening, we're in crisis, we're about to divorce, can we set up tomorrow? It's like, we can't do anything to help you tomorrow. If all of that is going on, there's no way one session is helping that. Like, if you take on coaching, counseling, or therapy in some way, this is a long-term commitment just based on the topic we're talking about right now. And that's not even past trauma and healing or dysregulation and regulating your emotions and understanding emotions and how to use emotions. And all of that's a whole piece of this. We're talking like ground level,
right,
of how to have a conversation with each other.
Right.
So
if you can't do task-oriented stuff in tandem, you're not going to do relational anything in tandem.
Right. And sometimes the autistic person might think, well, we do a lot of things together. We do yard work together. And the wife would say, we're in the backyard at the same time, but he's doing a task and I'm doing a task. We are not doing said task together. So if you're new to the show, I want to tell you about Just the Guys. We got a lot of good feedback about Just the Guys. And so Dan and some guys, it kind of changes a little bit week to week, talk about some of these things from the neurodivergent autistic perspective. Like I was quoting from Plant to People, and I said the plant was talking, because Dan wasn't always sure when the plant called Stephanie was going to talk or need some kind of care. So there's all different kinds of things, like theory of mind, relationship before task,
right,
parenting relationally, theory of mind. Why do we even use this word neurodiversity? All kinds of things. So look through the catalog and look up Just the Guys.
It usually has JTG on it.
JTG. The brand has changed a little bit on it, but the tile even looks a little bit different than the other branding. So anything you want to say as we're closing this today?
No, I think I said it all.
I think you said it all. All right.
Well, not forever, just for this one.
I inferred social context. I got it.
I said it all. So
Yeah.
I had to disclaimer that.
Right. And perfect example of what life is like. Wait, let me explain. No, I got it.
Well, it's hard to know.
One of my favorites, and I saw your brain thinking it was a while back. We're walking. I'd gone to the beauty shop that day, and you're like, your hair looks beautiful today. And I said, don't say it. Don't say it. Don't say it. Like, I mean, it looks good other days too. I don't want to mean that it's just today that it looks nice. I'm just noticing it today. And I was like, and there you go. You did it. You did the thing I said not to do. You could have said your hair looks nice today, and I would know you did not mean forever or the only day. I would know these things. Oh, such is the life.
How do I know what you know?
Well, that's this whole thing on inference and social context that we were talking about.
But if I started presuming you knew everything that I knew, then...
But that's that whole social context. Your hair looks beautiful or pretty today, period, is a statement that it looks nice today. You don't have to over-explain.
But many times, if I say that, it has an inference that the other days that I didn't say anything, it didn't look nice.
Well, that's your thinking and how you infer. That is not how most other people are doing that. So.
I don't know. I think that one's tricky.
Oh, well, I guess as the context was, I knew I went to the beauty salon that day and that it had been fixed. I think that, again, is part of the social context, bigger picture. Anyway, as we end today, we remind you that there is hope for your future, believe it or not.
And you're not alone on your journey.
That's right. Go to www.christianneurodiversemarriage.com, uniquely us. Pre-order yours today, where books are sold.
Pre-order the book.
Pre-order the book, where books are sold.
Yeah, that's more clear.